when you write an article which is titled "This Kids Game is Shedding Race in Gaming, and this is why it matters," it probably doesn't matter, does it? Because if it did matter, it would be self-evident. You wouldn't have to write an article about it. And the only thing that I can think of is you're probably a person that's overeducated, aren't you? And then I read the article, and yeah, it's a social scientist that studies male-dominated spaces. Completely useless degree that you can wipe your ass up with. Overly educated. That's what it means, you know? Back in the day, a PhD actually meant something. It had prestige. It's like, okay, you invented the nuclear bomb. Like, you contributed to the knowledge of mankind. You're improving the lives of people. Or, oh, you discovered the reaction engine. Oh my goodness, right? Like, you are privy to knowledge that very few other human beings possess. Like you are a person that is capable of pushing humanity forward. That's what a PhD used to mean. Now I remember like reading a journalist saying that she has a PhD in Twilight. Right, so like you have a PhD in inflation. You know, if printing PhDs was going to eliminate public stupidity, then printing money would make people rich. But this is what we're seeing. We're seeing like all these people that manage to have the money, or they even go in debt sometimes, to go to these universities where they memorize some garbage that the teacher gives them. They don't even have to think about what the garbage means. It's like literally like memorizing the phone book. Because I did to university, I can tell you how it's like. So they're memorizing the bullshit, then they have exams, they reproduce what they memorized, and instead they get a PhD and they think they're smart. Now, if you put them on an island, they don't know how to generate electricity, they don't know how to feed themselves, they don't know how to do jack shit, but they're incredibly smart. They're the savants of our world, and they write garbage like this for a living. So apparently, the thing that I find very funny is that they do mention the Satanic Panic. And the Satanic Panic is incredibly similar to what we see today. Not in target, but in the essence of it, right? So you have some chuckleheads that look at a game, and they think that because it has magic and because it's violent, it's harmful and dangerous for kids, right? So they're basically saying that this video game is hurting children because it's satanic. Now, back then, believe it or not, Wizards of the Coast actually did cave in a little bit to the controversy, and I think like they eliminated devils from the game for a while. They were called fiends, right? Like they made a couple of changes in order to appease the parents. But it was wrong then, because the game is absolutely harmless. And if you actually search for it, you will see that there is a movie made out of Dungeons and Dragons where it shows that because people were live action role playing, they became murderers and stuff. Like the panic was there, okay? Like people were just as unhinged back then. It's just that there were other issues. Now people are unhinged over race. Like the politics in America are fucking entering my house. It's like, why? Why, I'm from Romania. Why do I need this shit, right? But not only that, the idiots in charge of the game that have the IP now, they say that the original game would never have been made today. So this is the level of respect they show to the franchise. So again, the moral panic is that, okay, well, kids become racists because they play the game. It's just as absurd now as it was then. It's the same mentally unhinged, grifting weirdos that exist now that existed then. Because back then you had like all sorts of pastors and priests and televangelists like requiring donation for their wisdom. And their wisdom was like, let us tell you why there's evil in the world. It's Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like they would attack kids' games in order to like claim that they are fixing society, that they're doing something to benefit society. And it's the same shit now. You have like all these activists and grifters that are like, okay, the reason you have racism is because Dungeons and Dragons. I don't need a guy with a PhD to tell me what's going on. Alright, I don't care how you justify it and the loopholes, because like back then people justified it as well. It's like, oh yes, like kids are playing and they're moving away from God because they think magic is real, and you know, Dungeons and Dragons is cooler than the Bible. I mean, look at the miracles that Jesus did and compare it to a level 20 warlock. You know, it's like the same shit. Although at least back then, I will say that parents didn't really understand the game. They really didn't know that much, so it was a lot easier to mislead them. And secondly, parents were legitimately concerned because kids were playing this game way too much. And the reason kids were playing these games way too much is because usually they got bullied at school, because like mostly the nerds would play it. It was the social outcasts, the people that had problems socializing, whether they have autism or something. So those were the people that would pick up this game, and it was like escapism, right? Like back then you didn't have computers, you didn't have that type of stuff, so like you would gather around with your friends and you would play all day, and that kind of creeped parents out because kids are spending too much time indoors and they're not playing out. Maybe the game is demonic, maybe it actually is mind controlling kids. So like at least back then I can understand the satanic panic to a certain degree, but the racism panic today, I don't fucking understand it when it comes to D&D. I don't get it whatsoever. So yeah, like the person, which apparently is a PhD expert and he understands male-dominated spaces, he claims that there is backlash because of people claiming that the game has given into a woke mentality, which it did. I mean, again, we have evidence of it. We got the people in charge saying that if they could turn time back, they would never approve the original game, which is just mental insanity. So like you have a product that's capable of going around the world, everyone likes it regardless of culture, right? It transcends race, it transcends country, it transcends time, and you're saying no, I don't want that product. Like you're absolutely crazy. Only a woke person can think like this. But then they go around and they say it's because the players believe in highly critical the players are highly critical of the biological essentialism, parroting scientific and evolutionary language to explain marked social and cultural differences. So they literally believe that the reason people are against the change is that they think races are different. Which, don't get me wrong, like I'm sure there are players who do believe that, but there are also players that don't give a fuck about this. Like they literally don't care. The reason people are upset is that mission critical resources that should be invested at making the game more fun, at balancing the game, at making better spells, at making cooler stories, all those resources are divested into people that are absolutely talentless and can't write for shit. And you see it in the art style, you see it in the stories they come up with. Like their priority isn't the game anymore. Their priority is to virtue signal, to show how, that they can draw women that look like men and have no tits. And all the characters are now like stock photos with nothing offensive, no identity to the game. And when you look at the races, like the thing that made the game a fantasy and the thing that made the game Dungeons and Dragons was that, yeah, like the orcs behaved in a certain way and the elves behaved in one, but like now they put aside their differences in order to fight Sauron or whatever, right? Like you create drama. It creates tension. Yeah, like the dwarves behave this way and now they have to ally with an elf in the party. Like one of the cool shit was to play a draw, right? You're playing a dark elf, and everyone hates you because like your race is evil, but like you're trying to integrate, you're trying to be a good dark elf, and it creates drama, it creates friction, it creates interesting stories. Like that was the thing. But now it's like, no, actually all elves are the same, all orcs are the same, like everything is the same, it's just human resources, you can just replace them, and it's just aesthetics. So like, okay, why even have different species then? Why even have the fantasy? You're just making a fantasy where everyone is a human. And it's not just Dungeons and Dragons, like this ideology is like fucking cancer and it's everywhere. I remember watching Picard for a couple of seasons before I dropped it, and the Vulcans behaved like humans, the Romulans behaved like humans, the Borg behaved like humans, and it's like, okay, so why even have races then? What's the point? The whole point with races was that their culture was different, their races were different, so that you can have drama, you can have friction. This is why it's fantasy, right? Like, you cannot have fiction without drama, it's boring. But no, they decided that, yeah, we're going to throw away what makes fantasy unique, and that's why people are upset. It's not because, like, people are like you and they're thinking, oh, this is a video game, how can I push my ideology? No, they don't give a fuck about the racial existentialism, and I mean, maybe they do, but it's a different conversation to be had on another forum. Like, most people who play Dungeons and Dragons just want to play Dungeons and Dragons. I played with leftists, by the way. I played with Christy Winters. Like, Dungeons and Dragons is not a place to have political debates unless it's within the universe that you create. But I don't want to talk about Trump and Obama while I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons, which is something that the leftist brain cannot comprehend. And I find it really sickening when you keep just nailing your ideology into everything that you do. Like having a dragon come up and say making America great again. You know, like this is the level we're at. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.